I think the goal of this panel is to really make it real. So we have digital transformation as a concept has been around forever. But what it means in the last couple of years has definitely changed. From AI to machine learning, which are obviously buzzwords, but we're actually using them now, to mobile. It's all very interesting, very disruptive, very evolutionary and revolutionary concepts. And so before we get into too much detail, I'd love for these two guys, that's the real folks that you want to listen to introduce themselves. And to make it real, I'd love for them to tell us one or two of their top priorities. And I think keep in mind that they're coming from kind of two different worlds, so Equinox and GE Capital. But we talked yesterday, there are lots of overlap. And I think that's one of the things that is definitely revolutionary. If you think about their customers, they're extremely different, but the way they approach them is actually very similar.
Yeah, sure. So good morning, everybody. Samir Desai, I'm the Chief Technology Officer at Equinox. For those of you who are not familiar with Equinox as a brand, we're really a portfolio of fitness and lifestyle brands. Equinox Fitness Clubs is like a marquee brand. We have about 100 locations across the US and internationally. We also own a brand called SoulCycle. It's an indoor boutique cycling studio concept. There's about 100 locations of that as well. We launched a brand called Blink Fitness, which serves a very different demographic. It's more of a mass market brand. And then kind of the most exciting thing to me, in the next month, we're opening up our first hotel. So we're pushing the brand into hospitality and really kind of paying off on that lifestyle aspect of the brand. So the first hotel, the Equinox Hotel, will open on the west side of Manhattan here in Hudson Yards. And then we have about 50 to 60 hotels that'll open over the next 10 years. So really kind of pushing beyond just fitness and getting into travel and things of that nature. So that's a little bit about the company. From a priority standpoint, for me, it's really been, the last several years have been about transforming a lot of the enterprise technology that's behind now. We're in the cloud. We have all SaaS-based platforms. We're really focused now on how do we drive the digital customer experience. And the Equinox mobile app is kind of the crown jewel, if you will. And we know, we're a subscription-based business, so we know the more our member or customers engage with our app, the more they're engaged with the brand overall, and we're going to retain that customer. So we're doing a lot of things in the app that'll drive stickiness. There's a lot of utility and transactional things that have already been done to check in, to book a class, to purchase things, but now it's more, how do you make it like an Instagram or something that really kind of the user wants to open up and kind of pull down to see what's new, what's fresh. So we're spending more time on content. We're spending time on connecting our membership base through the app. So we've got great physical community inside of our physical spaces. How do we extend that digitally so that we can connect members across common topics, whether it's fitness related like running or cycling, or even beyond that, things like travel, food. It's a very kind of tight-knit community of members that are like-minded that could really benefit from one another. So those are some of the things that we're focused on.
And I'm Steve Rullo. Good morning. Wear two hats at GE. I'm the CIO for the GE Capital business, which is the financial services arm of the company, which has gone through a dramatic amount of change over the last couple of years, but still $100 billion of assets, financing a lot of the industrial equipment that the rest of the company sells to the market. My second role is a corporate role as the CIO for our global operations business, which is really the corporate and enterprise financial systems. We have several shared platforms in finance, sourcing that I manage for the company. And I run a couple of different shared services around automation and data that we can also talk about. In terms of priorities, obviously the portfolio transformation for the company that we're going through and has been pretty well publicized is a critical activity. But I'll talk about two priorities that are right at the top around the digital experience. And similar but somewhat different than Samir, we have the businesses focused on the customer. In my corporate role, I'm really focused on the digital experience within the enterprise and the employee. And so two areas, automation and leveraging robotics, AI, machine learning to drive better outcomes for the various business processes, which ultimately result in better outcomes for our customers around productivity, quality, cycle time. and driving that with big data behind it. The second area is continuing our cloud journey. So we've been putting apps into AWS for quite a while. If, like many large enterprises, we wanted to get numbers into AWS, so refactoring them sometimes didn't go as far as they should have, so we're going back, leveraging a lot more of the native services in AWS, including database and integration layers like products like Glue. And then we're also going cloud on ERP. So we launched our first supply chain fully in the cloud, SaaS offering from Oracle last year for our GE additive business, one of our smaller manufacturing business. Been hugely successful, continuing to partner with Oracle to make that a reality for some of our bigger businesses, but that's a big play for us to really drive more flexibility in the operating model of the company, to have more of our core applications on a flexible, elastic infrastructure in the cloud.
Perfect. I'll quickly introduce myself. So I'm Futoran. I love disrupting. I'm on the startup side. My first company was Scopely, 6 #1 apps, including Walking Dead and Star Trek in the mobile stores, all top grossing. I'm playing Star Trek like crazy, disrupting a Disney and EA, to go to the topics of today. And Embrace, you can think of it as taking that information from a Scopely and applying it to a bunch of enterprises, including like a Home Depot and a Match. You can think of us as like a New Relic plus Datadog. We're disrupting them because that's why startups exist. To a large extent, new mediums like mobile create opportunity and require different technology, different thought processes, and different expertise. So turning back to you guys, I think one of the interesting things we talked about was, yes, we have these initiatives, and they're hugely important, but they actually need to be conducted in a timely manner because these things are changing quickly. I'd love for you guys to talk about maybe one story each around the change management, because I feel like that's interesting for everybody here and a common theme that we all share.
Yeah, I'll go first. So I think change is hard. I think I think there's no question about that. One thing that we learned at Equinox, and I learned personally, was initially we took the approach of technology and kind of the digital team defining how to redo a process and really kind of pushing it down, almost kind of top down. And on paper it sounded great, in the conference room it sounded great, and when we kind of rolled it out in the field, we were met with a lot of resistance, right? So kind of the learning from that was kind of, as we go around another time, how do we loop in people from the field who are actually going to be implementing and executing the change up front, so it feels like they're part of the process. And that was a big learning for us in that, we really there's certain kind of white space or opportunity that the kind of corporate team perceived. But when you get into the kind of trenches, you find out that might not necessarily be the biggest opportunity. So kind of when we did this the second time around, we really kind of cherry-picked certain people from the field organization and brought them into the project team and really had them participate from the beginning. They had a lot of credibility with their peers. So when we rolled out again, there was a lot more buy-in because they knew that somebody that they trusted, that was doing a similar job as them, was really kind of behind this and had weighed in the change itself. So that's kind of a philosophy we're now starting to employ, is a lot of the things we're doing have an impact. People need to execute the change, and the change that we're implementing, while it's digital in nature, ultimately needs to be carried out by people inside of our clubs, inside of our studios. So it's really important that we get their buy-in up front, and they're part of that process.
So for 125-year-old company like GE, going from a big industrial iron-based product company to more of a digital company really required significant, I think, change management. We're still on that journey. Similar to Samir, I think we did initially, we had some lessons learned around putting teams and agile frameworks in isolation to broader operations, broader functions that we were trying to affect change in. And I really think we took a step back and realized in order to really become more digital, dare I say, an entirely digital enterprise, you really have to change the culture and the digital thinking beyond just the IT organization. And a couple of things we did that really affected that, to really focus on a new way of operating beyond just the technology projects. We started to create more multidisciplinary teams, mission-based teams with functional and IT together, a lot of times co-located. We're a globally distributed team, so that was difficult at times, but where you had the business process SME, the analysts, the developer, the architect, all part of a pod working on a particular outcome. And it really drove a faster, no matter how good your communication is across functions, it's going to be slower if you're working across organizational boundaries. So we found the ability to go fast, which is a key tenet of digital, in my opinion, was facilitated by that. The other one, which really started at the top, was the notion that you need to iterate, you need to take risks, and it's going to be okay to fail. And that's hard to do in a company that's size and scale of GE, where the failures could have large implications. But we started to have project reviews, which, by the way, we eliminated PowerPoint for. We brought in the project leaders as opposed to their, the executives that were doing the roll-up of the reporting into the senior leadership team. We brought them in on the regular updates, and we started with, okay, where are you? What went wrong? We asked, what did you learn? And how do we get better? And it started to create a comfort factor in the project teams and the operational teams that, hey, it's okay if I make a mistake. The most important thing is to realize that we've made the mistake, adjust and move on. And it really started to change the way people thought about coming in. We used to have pre-reviews of pitches, sanitizing, wordsmithing, all that, I'm happy to say, started to go away and has gone away. And it's allowed us to move a lot quicker and iterate and really drive some better outcomes.
I mean, that's where the information that you really want is when it's not sanitized. Mm-hmm. That's interesting. And one of the disruptive technologies that you guys both mentioned earlier on was mobile, obviously near and dear to my heart. I've got a couple minutes left. I'd love to hear specifically how you guys are using it. You both had good stories from yesterday. And it's something that's definitely disruptive for all of us. I mean, when we think about the web, it first started with social and games, and then it increased productivity and e-commerce. And we're going through that revolution right now. Like, it obviously started with social games. Now it's turning into media, e-commerce, and productivity apps. So I'd love to hear quickly about how you guys both are approaching kind of using mobile to disrupt your own organizations.
Yeah, for us at Equinox, I mean, it's really, there's a battle for the consumer's time that's going on right now. And in our typical, we know as an example, our typical consumer works out, let's say, 2.5 hours a week. That's 2% of the amount of time there is in a week, right? So as a brand, how do we show up in the rest of the 98% of the time? So mobile is really kind of our kind of channel there. So we're doing a lot to...
That's a good mic for a
cough. The microphone's working. We're doing a lot to really kind of reach the consumer kind of morning to night, and the mobile app is really how we're doing that. So when you wake up in the morning, we want the first thing you do is pick up your phone, you open up the Equinox app, and it tells you how you slept based on a sleep tracker. We recommend what you should eat for breakfast based on how we saw you slept and what you did last night. That information goes to your trainer, so your trainer can really program you based on that. And then throughout the day, we're kind of pushing content to you that's relevant and helping you live a healthier lifestyle. And all that really can only happen through mobile. So we're really adopted this mobile-first approach. We almost kind of stopped updating our desktop web experience because at this point, it's almost become useless to add utility features on the website. It's really, we have iOS, we have Android, so we're pushing all of our consumers to go mobile and really kind of committed to that.
I think it's pretty interesting considering like starting as a brick and mortar. Now you're shifting how the people are experiencing the product.
Yeah, a couple of internal examples that we've done just to give you the other side of that is we've launched a couple of apps focused on the people managers and leaders in the company that allow, and we have people that travel all over the world on a regular basis and need access to activities related to managing their organizations and teams. So everything from simply pulling up information about your organization to approving transactions like travel purchase orders on your iPhone, we've had in place for some time. We've started to expand that. We have an app called FinTips, which is based on our big data platform, where we aggregate a lot of the financial data of the company. And we started with a pretty small use case around T&L. We want to make sure our cash spend is going towards our products and our customers and not on things like internal travel. So we actually have this app, FinTips, that the intent is to create the digital FP&A for your organization. We have about 25% of the executives in the company using it regularly, and it also created a democratization of data discussion in the company, because it shows how much each individual is spending on travel, where they've gone with policy, where they've gone outside of policy for travel, where they are against budget, et cetera, in a very easy to view UI with alerts. And for a company like GE that spends several billions of dollars on travel a year, it may seem quite not a worthwhile extra, but it is for us. And so it's driven a behavior that has actually improved that cost management. We plan to expand that out to other use cases.
Sounds good. I'm seeing the clock. How much do we have more time for one last thought? Okay. Thank you very much. I appreciate you guys taking the time. This was really interesting for me. Hopefully helpful for everybody else as well.
Thank you.